Hello everyone, welcome to the Redmen TV. It is the deep dive with the regular pairing of me, Chris Pajak, and that man right there, Mr. Josh Williams. It's been a few weeks since I've done a deep dive, mate. I was
going to say, yeah.
I felt gutted not to be in the studios talking football with you, mate. How has my replacement been? I have actually, yeah.
Yeah. I've had two different replacements actually, rotating squad, mate.
Yeah. Paul and Steve?
Steve and Paul jumped on, yeah.
Yeah. Steve enjoyed it. Steve said he really enjoyed it.
Yeah, well, people get intimidated by the deep dive. They get intimidated by the level that it goes to, where it's all deep and all that stuff. But I think after it, people realise, like, you know what, it's actually not that much of a brainiac thing, is it? It's just a talk, but like we involve tactics and numbers a little bit more, maybe. But
yeah, absolutely. Well, listen, before we get into it, we've got a huge action-packed show, of course, as always. But today, we have just released details of the Red Weekender. So, the full details, our end of season party this year involves Sir Kenneth Dalglish and his family competing in a family fortune style game show against the Redmen TV. And I can't believe I'm saying it. We've got live music from the fucking Zootons. The Zootons! We've got the Ragamuffins doing a Liverpool set. We've got Harry Mack DJing. We've got a meet and greet with John Aldridge, Natasha Dowie, Bruce Grobbelaar and Gary McAllister. And if that wasn't enough, we've got Les Dennis hosting the Family Fortune style show. Yes, the day before Crystal Palace, the 24th of May, we will be hosting the biggest party in the best city in the world, and we will be celebrating Arne Slot's massive campaign. So yeah, for details, you can go to the redweekender.com. And as I say, we've teamed up with Boss Night, we've teamed up with the Anfield Rap. We're doing big shows across the weekend. Friday is Boss Night. Saturday 2 till 7 p.m. is Redmen TV. Saturday evening in an auditorium is the Anfield Rap. We've got Boss Kids happening on the Sunday morning. It is everything you are going to need from a Liverpool festival of fun in your life. So you can get your tickets at the redweekender.com, or if you listen to me carefully right now, I'm going to tell you where the pre-sale tickets are, which I really shouldn't be doing, but so what? bit.ly/Redmen Red Weekender 2025. That's bit.ly/Redmen Red Weekender 2025. Pre-sale today, full sale tomorrow morning, Friday 9 a.m. Oh yes, and if that wasn't enough, I will involve you in a minute, Josh, I'm sorry.
I'm still thinking about Les Dennis, mate.
Les Dennis.
That's a serious name.
We're moving.
Yeah,
We're moving. We have got 3 incredible live shows next week in Ireland for you. You can get them from ticketmaster.ie. We'll be in Dublin in the Ambassador Theatre on the 23rd, in Belfast in the Limelight on the 24th, and in Cork on the 25th in Cypress Avenue. So if you can't make it across for them and you're in any of those 3 towns or cities, I don't know what Cork is, then get on to it and get involved at ticketmaster.ie. Just search the Redmen TV and you can join us on our live tour. I promise. I hate doing like promos and stuff. Don't normally do them, but these events are too big. Les Dennis, Kenny Dalglish, Paul Dalglish, other members of the Dalglish family, John Aldridge, the Zootons, as if... Do you know I went to school with one of the Zootons? Junior school, yeah, with Abby Hardin, the saxophonist. Yeah. So
it's not my style of music, I'll be honest, but it's a big name.
It's a fucking huge name.
It's a big name.
Bet you love Valerie, though.
Well,
I was a no.
Let's move on.
Okay, let's move on. We're going to start with the deep dive then. Thank you for putting up with that. I appreciate it. So first off, the title of this show, how much could Liverpool have to spend in the summer? This isn't really about a transfer kitty. This is more about wages. And what that, for me, and why I think this is a deep dive topic more than anything, is this isn't just flouncy fucking stuff. But Paul had a question for us on the podcast, which I don't think ever really got asked, but it was in the agenda. And he said about Mo's contract, how much does this impact the summer? Potentially less dough to play with versus less overall work to do. And I sort of span off thinking about the contract side of things, because Mo is going to be on the same give or take money, I think, on a weekly basis. We know about the bonuses and everything else, Josh. But I was thinking, well, hang on a minute. Trent will have been offered more than he's on. So they've budgeted for that somewhere along the lines. And there's going to be a lot of outgoing. So I kind of wanted to come to a figure where Liverpool will have on a weekly basis to spend in wages. And that's what this show is about. And I also wanted to tie that in, Josh, with Homegrown. Because I think a lot of the players that were rumoured to be leaving are homegrown players. And that impacts how you build a squad, doesn't it?
Yeah. I mean, the wages stuff is often... It's not really talked about, is it? You know, it generally gets overlooked. But the wages, for example, is one of the reasons why I was tipping Liverpool to get to be interested at least in Kvaratskhelia before he moved to PSG, because when he was at Napoli, despite being a really good player, and you might have to cough up like 60-70 million for him or something, in terms of what he was earning, I think he was on about 10 grand a week. For the player that he is, you know, Liverpool can 10 times that really, and it still wouldn't really twist aside. So sometimes you can kind of tip little transfer moves and see who's going to be moving where, who's available, who's not, based on the wages that they're in. For example, Marcus Rashford is going to be really tricky for Man United to move on because he's earning over 300 grand a week. So the market of teams that can afford that is tiny. Whereas someone like Luis Diaz, who we're going to talk about in the next show, for Plus, I'm assuming, is on about 55 grand a week. So it impacts the market that Liverpool could potentially sell him to. It's quite big for the player that he is. So it's often overlooked, but it really does play a part if you're like a sporting director or something.
Yeah, exactly. I think the other thing is as well, I mean, people often talk about it, don't they, that FSG, and this isn't pro or con FSG, but this is how people talk about it. FSG don't invest in the football club. And in transfer side of things, I would probably agree in transfer fees. But in terms of wages to revenue, I think Liverpool have been really well invested in.
Yeah. I mean, that's kind of how you want to justify your payments, basically. You want to pay players according to what they will deliver on the pitch, basically. And I think if you look at a lot of the clubs in the Premier who are struggling, a lot of them are, I mean, Man United's the ultimate example. All the players who are earning top whack for them, aside from Bruno Fernandes, they're really not paying them back on the pitch. Like if you think of Casemiro's a really high earner. You could argue he's costing them points. So that's what FSG, that's what John Henry's always been interested in, like a very efficient means of like making your money run as far as possible for you, basically, and you do that with the wages. And
I think when we talk about it, I'll just quickly show you the Manchester United stuff, what Josh was talking about, right? Because you can see it. I think everything on Capology or on FBref or Transfer Market does have to be taken with a pinch of salt. But I think we all know that Casemiro's on 350 base salary, Bruno Fernandes 300, Mason Mount 250, De Ligt 195, Maguire 190, Eriksen 150, Sancho 150. These are all players who Bruno Fernandes probably deserves it for where he is at that football club. Other than that,
I mean, the Mason Mount one's insane.
It's naughty.
Like, considering what he's done since he's been there, and I know it's largely because of injury, so it's not technically his fault, but to be paying him as much as you are, think of the output you've got from him in return on the pitch. It's non-existent. So, you know, Casemiro as well, as I said, he probably costing you points. Harry Maguire, you're paying him to sit on the bench. Christian Eriksen's past it. Jadon Sancho, you're paying him to play for Chelsea. Yeah. It's an absolute
and
mess.
Luke Shaw, injury-wise,
in
2023, he signed his new contract to take him to 2027. He's on 150. And he's had his injury issues as well, hasn't he? So you're not getting your return on investment there either. Whereas when you look at Liverpool's, and we will do very shortly, I think we understand where about Liverpool are paying their money. So, again, I will say it, Josh, this has got to be taken with a pinch of salt. And one of the reasons is that it doesn't include bonuses, and Liverpool are notorious for paying their players good bonus. This is all talked about as base salary stuff, isn't it, Josh? Now,
yeah.
I mean, Salah's a great example. Bobby Firmino is an example. The team that won the Premier League last time had huge bonuses for Premier League winning, didn't they?
Yeah, I think so. But that's generally what you want. Like, because the idea is
you pay him when you win stuff.
Exactly. if a player's getting paid, it means he's doing well, which should mean in theory the team's doing well, which means money's coming in. So it's kind of like a circle, really, where, you know, a virtuous circle where everyone's benefiting, everyone's doing well. So it's like Salah's new contract, for example, like the money that he's reported to be earning and things like that, for just getting paid for like goals and assists and things like that. If Liverpool have to pay him an absolute ton, Liverpool will be doing well on the pitch.
Yeah.
So they will be, winning more Champions League games, winning more trophies, have more money to throw at Salah. That's the sensible way of doing it, like, incentivizing those contracts, unless there's certain players who they're maybe peak age and they're going to deliver to a certain level, but I think you want to incentivize as much as possible. It's obviously a bit more difficult if you're incentivizing like a centre-half or something, but someone like a Kanata who's currently between posts a little bit with that, you could incentivize him just with appearances. Yeah. Just if you make a certain number of appearances, but I think with that same incentive with Van Dijk would be a little bit less, a little bit pointless.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, well, let's look at it then, and then we're thinking about the squad as a whole. And what I will say is, according to Capology, Trent Alexander-Arnold is on 180. I'll just see if I can get that highlighted there. Currently, I managed to do it for a second. I think it's fair to say that Liverpool will have offered him a contract in the region of 300, so that's been budgeted for. It was just not taken. So that you're looking at Trent Alexander-Arnold on 300. For me, I'm looking at Federico Chiesa on 150 and going, have we got our money's worth there? I'm looking at Darwin Núñez on 140. I'm looking at Gomez on 85. I'm looking at Tsimikas on 75. Nat Phillips' contract runs out. He's on 20. Kelleher's on 10. There's question marks over him with 1 year left. Yaros's contract is running out. He's on 7. And Tyler Morton's contract runs out and he's on 8. Now, I've tallied them up for you. And I don't think... Are any of them out of the realms of... No, they're going to stay?
Just quickly, Tyler Morton's contract runs out, does it?
Yeah.
So he leaves on a free?
Yeah.
I didn't know that. That's weird.
According to this. And a couple of other places with the publicly available information.
Yeah. What was the question again, sorry?
So, are any of these players, Trent Chiesa, Núñez, Gomez, Tsimikas, Nat Phillips, Kelleher, Yaros and Morton, likely to stay?
I think the most likely to stay there for me is arguably Chiesa, in a weird sort of way. But just purely because we've just signed him. But I know he hasn't been used at all, and I know if someone bids for him, Liverpool will probably entertain it. But the others feel like a bit more... They've been at the club long enough, and to prevent like another Naby Keita, Oxlade-Chamberlain, where you're clapping them out the door, you take a fee for them now. So I think Tsimikas maybe goes, you demote Robertson, you get in Kerkez or something. Gomez probably go. I mean, Gomez nearly went last summer. Núñez, I think, is definitely going. Kelleher again. Kelleher 10k, by the way. He's going to get a serious bump if he stays in the Premier League when he gets his move to become a starter. So no, I agree with all of them, really. What do you think on Chiesa? Do you think that's...
I think Liverpool will be looking at it and going, value for money, we ain't got it. I think it'll be difficult to shift him. But I think there'll be Italian clubs interested in him because he'll have stayed fit for the most part for a season, even without getting the workload, maybe.
Yeah.
And there were already rumours in January, weren't there, that Italian clubs were interested. So on that basis, let's say Trent was budgeted for 300k. I've added up the figures for all the rest of the players for you. That totals £787,000 a week. Okay?
Yeah.
I'm going to factor in an increase to say 300 grand a week for Van Dijk because he's down as like 180 or something.
220, I think.
220, okay. So that okay, 80 grand off 787 becomes £707,000 a week to play with in terms of your budgeted money. That's a lot of money that Liverpool can spend on a weekly basis.
Yeah.
Now, I think you'll need a centre forward because you're getting rid of Núñez. I think you're going to need a centre back because Gomez is not there. A left back because Tsimikas isn't there. A right back because Trent isn't there. And a goalkeeper because Yaros and Kelleher both potentially leave.
Maybe Alisson as well.
Well, let's not talk about
let's
that.
Not get into that.
But the other thing, Josh, 6 homegrown players will have left. That's massive because you need 8 to fill a 25-man squad, don't you?
Yeah. It's strange. It arguably explains as well why Liverpool are maybe shopping in the Premier League a little bit lately. We're getting linked with a lot of Premier League players, but obviously they're not all homegrown. But that's generally something that we always seem to talk about that, don't we? But it never seems to get mentioned by the club or by anyone linked to the club, and it never seems to be stressed about. But if you edge towards it, if you lose the likes of Trent, especially, he was a starter. Gomez has always been there. Keller has always been there. Maybe you do have to start investing in some English players, some homegrown ones.
Absolutely. So let's say we've got 707,000 to play with, right? I've got a centre forward at 300k.
It's a good centre forward then.
Yeah.
I hope so.
I've got Dean Huijsen at circa 80,000. He's got a release clause for 50 million this summer that activates.
Right.
The centre-back from Bournemouth. I've got Kerkez as well. Let's say 50k.
I would
Could
say
be higher.
I would say a bit more.
Okay.
Just purely because he's on 30 now.
Okay, so let's double him. Or 75.
Yeah, at least double, yeah.
75k.
Yeah.
Then I got a right back at 40k and a goalkeeper at 10k. But I think Liverpool will try and re-sign Jaros because he's homegrown and he's on $7,000 a week.
Yeah. He's good as well from what we've seen.
Yeah, exactly. Like... Now, that totals 505k a week. So we've still got, 202,000 left a week.
Right. And that's for that's considering in the right back and centre forward you don't know who they are.
Yeah.
That's given that as well.
That's given a right back 40k and a centre forward 300,000. Now, you could say to me, Chris, if Nunes goes and if Chiesa goes, you're going to need to fill the Chiesa spot as well. You've got 202,000 a week to do that with.
Yeah. I also think we need a midfielder. Like, I mean, if you was to get rid of Endo, I'd be surprised if Endo's on that much. But if you replaced Endo with
he's on 50.
He's on 50. If you was to replace him with a younger model, I would assume he'd be on a little bit more than that. But you'd have scope to do it, obviously, because you just said one of my favourites, who I keep mentioning, is Angelo Stiller. He's currently on 86 at Stuttgart, so he'd move about around 100 or something if he comes to Liverpool, like.
Yeah.
So I'm surprised at that. But that's in Euros, like.
Yeah, it's about the same nowadays, isn't it, with Brexit and all that anyway. So, well, I think Liverpool are in a really healthy financial position in terms of what they can and can't spend, even with, Van Dijk signing again, hopefully, in the next few days, and Salah signing in the next few days. The thing where I think it's difficult is the homegrown players, because for me, it's Kwanzaa, it's Bradley, Elliott, McConnell, Dans, Jones and Bajcetic is homegrown this season, I think.
Right, didn't know that. Which
is really fascinating, isn't it? Because you've got to be at an academy from a certain age for 3 seasons.
Yeah.
And I think that comes into effect for Bajcetic this pre-season.
Yeah.
So that would give us 7, which gives us a 24-man squad for the Prem.
But a lot of them you just mentioned in my head are kind of for sale.
But if they're the only English ones.
I know. That might be why I don't want to say forced to keep them, but I mean, the signs we've seen this season suggest that Elliott isn't getting a look in, is he? Kwanzaa's getting linked with Newcastle. So, you know what? Thinking about it, it could be a case of Liverpool have to go and dedicate a fair bit of money to a homegrown player who would be a bit more of a central figure to the team, like at least Curtis Jones level figure in the team. Like, for example, I think we got linked a little bit with Gibbs White, didn't we?
Mm-hmm.
He's homegrown. Just trying to think of... Is Jamie Gittins?
I don't know.
He's at Dortmund now, isn't he? But I think he moved there from England. I can't really remember who I'll check that in the sec, but it makes sense though. And that usually it's up a fair bit of the budget as well. If you want to buy a homegrown player who's doing well, you're going to pay for it.
Yeah. A question for you, because you mentioned it then. I want to get the board involved a little bit. I don't know whether you agree with this, right? But I've sort of rationalised in my head that, Trent Alexander-Arnold's played here for us. Not the best defensively, I think it's fair to say. I wondered whether Szoboszlai is completely and always favoured in this position because it's Trent on this side and Mo on this side. And I just wonder whether, if it's Conor Bradley, does Elliott get more game time because he's not having to do as much of that?
Yeah, maybe. I think the thing with the Elliott stuff though is when Szoboszlai doesn't play, it seems to be Jones who comes in. I think there's probably more scope to do it if Bradley's there rather than Trent. But I think you have Salah there, and Salah,
that's still a problem.
Salah doesn't defend, and and McAllister's his midfield partner. McAllister can't really run. So one of the reasons Szoboszlai is so important here, the skill set that he's got, is because of the guy on the outside of him and the guy on the inside of him.
And he's covering that to that, and also that at times as well, along with Gravenberch and stuff. Do you think there's more scope for like a Harvey Elliott if you get a focal point up front?
It depends who it is. I think if you get in someone like a Julian Alvarez, he runs like a dog. You know, he will work himself into the ground. Like someone who's a bit, I think, for example, Alexander Isak, I think does less of that. I don't think he gets carried to the same level of Salah. But like Firmino, for example, would obviously help out Elliott if you had him in the team. It's about that balance. We were talking about this with Steve actually last week, you know, just speaking about you can't have a team of forwards, like a team of attackers. You need it's like a recipe, you need to balance it. And I think the problem for Elliott is just that it's not currently, think of a mad ingredient. It's not, the recipe isn't currently set up to accommodate what he is as an ingredient to it, if you get what I mean. But I think Liverpool would have more of an interest in selling him than he would in leaving.
Yeah.
So
because he's probably 40-50 million pounds.
I'd say he's at least £50 million.
But he's
player.
English, so that maybe bumps it a touch as well. He's so young, his ceiling's so high, he's so experienced. Like, there are a lot of things going for Harvey Elliott. He just can't seem to get into our team under this manager.
No. It is a bit weird. I mean, there's been a few occasions where I've thought to myself, and I can be quite cold as a fan as well. Sometimes I'm a bit like, no, get out the team and things like that. But there's been a few more than what we've seen with Slot where I've thought to myself, I would have played Elliott there, or I would have brought him on there or something. But he's colder than I am, Slot, when it comes to it. You know, we just won't play him.
So getting back to the homegrown stuff, because I do find it fascinating. So you can't talk about homegrown without talking about the foreign players, as it were. The non-homegrown players, that's probably a better way of putting it.
Yeah.
So Mamardashvili becomes one. Alisson, Konate, Van Dijk, Robbo, Gravenberch, McAllister, Szoboszlai, Diaz, Salah, Endo, Jota, Gakpo. 13 non-homegrown. With our current 7 that I gave us of Kwanzaa, Bradley, Elliott, McConnell, Dans, Jones, Bajcetic, that takes us to 20, right? That means, because we've only got 7, not 8 homegrown players, you could only add 4 non-homegrown players to make your squad 24. Now, the 4 non-homegrown players are centre-forwards. Let's say it's Dean Huijsen as a centre-back. Let's say it's Kerkez. And let's say you need a right-back. You still have space for the 4 of them.
To sign 4, you mean? Sign 4 homegrown players?
If you keep Bajcetic and he becomes homegrown.
Yeah.
Now, you don't necessarily... If you had more homegrown players, you wouldn't register Dans, because he can still play because he's a kid anyway. So you wouldn't register him. You're forced to register your homegrown to get more non-homegrown slots. That's how it works, isn't it?
Yeah.
But right now, by my logic, which isn't always the best, we could, with the 7 players I've given you and the 13 players we've got, still sign 4 non-homegrown players.
I still hate the 7 that you've given me, but...
Well, what's wrong with him? Kwanzaa, he signed a new long-term contract. He's staying. Bradley, staying.
Bradley's the only one I like out of them all.
Elliott, listen, good player. McConnell, manager really likes him. Said that this season. Jayden Dans is one for the future. Not necessarily one that you would have in your homegrown now because he's a kid. But if it gives you a spot for another non-homegrown, you use him in that spot. Curtis Jones is in the squad, and Bajcetic may or may not be homegrown this season. That's based on something I've found out.
Yeah.
Like, it's not a bad 7, really.
It's not a bad 7.
Harvey Elliott didn't get registered this season, for example.
Well, put it this way, if they weren't homegrown and they didn't have that like little added perk, if you want, would you have any interest in them? I think Bradley and Jones for me are the 2 genuine Liverpool players in there. I
think Dan's has the potential to be. I think, as I said, the manager does like McConnell. And Kwanzaa's, I don't think they're ready to give up on him yet. He's not a right back though. Yeah, he's had a bad season, Kwanzaa, you see. You are cold, like. Yeah, I know I am, yeah. How old's Kwanzaa? 20 maybe. I think he's older than 20. Oh, is he? Double check that. 22, jeez. See, Kwanzaa's 22. Dean Huijsen is turned 22 days ago.
So he's 2 years younger. He's already experienced the season this term as a starter for Bournemouth. 2-footed, can play on both sides. Just as tall as Kwanzaa. I'd say better on the ball. This is the level. This is Liverpool. You know what I mean? So I don't know.
Yeah. No,
it's a big summer. It really is a big summer. Like people keep talking about it, and a lot of people. There's a lot of skeptics out there who just don't believe that Liverpool will ever have a big summer under FSG. But this is looking like it's going to be a big one.
Now, to put transfer kitty stuff on it, like realistically, knowing the way Liverpool operate in the transfer market, how much do you think we really have to spend?
Well, it depends on who we sell. That's literally as simple as that. So
plus a figure from, we should have a figure every year, say 50 million to spend every year.
Yeah, well, I think generally it's sell to buy, isn't it? So I've wrote once before that like the way FSG do the model, it's kind of, it rewards the sporting director for being good at selling. Basically, if the sporting director can sell well, he'll have plenty to spend. And selling well is largely about who he's selling. And Liverpool have got a really deep squad with lots of kids who've got lots of potential. The likes of Kelleher, who can't really get a game. Elliott can't get a game. You know, Kwanzaa, you're chatting like 50 million for the two of them. I think the goalkeeper maybe 30, 40 or something like that. So I think it's just a case of how much upheaval will be willing to sanction. How many players will be willing to sell. Because I ran through it the other day. I'll get it up in a sec when you talk. But if Liverpool was to sell like a lot of second strings where the first 11 would barely be impacted, you're talking over 200 million of sales. I'll get the group up in a sec, but if Richard Hughes manages to raise 200 million, I'm not saying it'll be 200 million, but if he manages to raise that without even touching the first 11 or the first 13, 14, that's 200 million he can do what he wants with. John Henry doesn't care. John Henry's not sat there going, nah, Isak's not worth 90 million. It's entirely on the brains of the people who are at Anfield. They sell to raise whatever money they can, and then they go and buy whoever they deem fit for purpose. And that's how the model works.
I love what you were saying there, Josh. I really do. The big thing that I have as like a warning sign at the back of my mind is I just can't really see a world where 12 transfers happen minimum in the summer.
No.
Ins and outs. Because if we sell 5, I think we need 7.
Well, I don't know. It depends on
that's
yourself.
where I'm like, oh my days, can Liverpool really get that done? And like, I know they'd had last summer off basically, apart from Federico Chiesa and Mamadashvili actually as well. But I'm like, I know that Liverpool need to do this, and I know that they've got the money to do this, but are Liverpool actually really going to sanction 5 or 6 sales that equates to 7 signings to cover those positions? And that's where my head goes, I don't think so, Chris.
No, it's a difficult one, that. I think Liverpool, and this is the case with most heavyweight clubs, I think City have been doing this for a few years now. It's more a case of you sell, I don't know, 8 second strings who you're not going to miss and who've barely played. You're talking like less than 500 minutes for the season. And you buy 3 players, maybe 4 players, at least 2 of which you're going to come in as starters. So you get rid of the quantity, you get in the quality. That's kind of how I think Liverpool will do it. That's how City have done it in recent years, selling the likes of, you know, Romeo Lavia and James Trafford and all that, and they've just threw the profits at like I think one year they sold a load of kids and just went and bought Grealish for 100 million. I don't entirely agree with a lot of the sales. You know, they've sold the likes of Cole Palmer.
Was Cole Palmer one of those that they got rid of for Grealish?
Yeah, it might have been, you know, thinking about it. But I think that's how Liverpool would do it. I think Liverpool's current level of depth with the squad, I don't think Slot and Hughes will think we need it to be this deep. Because I think in a lot of positions, I think we're 3 players deep. say for example, the goalkeeping department, we've got Alisson, we've got I think we've got 4 really good goalkeepers. You don't need 4, you need 2, really. Well, maybe 3.
But my question then is, and again, being devil's advocate here, Mo goes to the African Cup of Nations in December. Like,
yeah, I don't know.
That's got to be there as well. We've got a left back that we think will probably leave, but a left back that we need to improve on as well is left. We've got a centre forward in Núñez and Jota. You wouldn't class either of them as your A1.
No.
Centre forward. I think it's different. What I'm trying to say is, I think it's different if you've got 11 nailed on starters, but Liverpool don't.
Yeah, I think we've got a lot of nailed on starters though. I think I look at this recently and I think if Liverpool are going to prioritise their business for the summer, I think the priority you surely have to prioritise
the first team spots,
the starters. Yeah,
so you have
left back and your 9.
Yeah,
are probably the 2 players that you can get in.
Yeah,
they come in straight in the team. I think I've been high on a new midfielder for a while, but I think whoever we sign, the current 3 are going to be the 3 next season. So drops a little bit down. The right back thing, I think Bradley's the starter next season, personally.
I do, but I think it's also a priority because of his injuries.
Yeah, I don't disagree on that. I think the Gakpo Diaz thing is interesting. We're getting into that in the next show. And the Salah one, it depends what you do with Chiesa. Because I'm convinced Chiesa was bought to rotate with Salah, but because of the season Salah's had, we just haven't needed him at all. And he's been, for whatever reason, he's been reluctant to use him elsewhere unless we absolutely need him with like 10 minutes left, and he's just threw him on as a joker card or something. But looking at these players here,
go on.
This is just a list of players who I think Liverpool would listen to offers for, and Liverpool sold them all. Like, tell me if I'm being unrealistic here. Núñez, Diaz, Gomez, Tsimikas, Kwanzaa, Kelleher, Elliott, Doak, Morton. I think they're all within reason for sale.
Yeah, I agree with that list. I've read somewhere, and I can't back this up, but Doak's contract ends this summer, but I can't. And it's on Capology, and it's on Transfer Markets, I think, but not on FB Ref. I cannot imagine a world where Liverpool loan him out and don't tie him down beforehand. Like, you don't just loan him out and then let him leave at the end. So I think that information is wrong.
Yeah, but
there's a club option to extend. That's the only other way I can work it round in my head.
Well, I think two teams bid 15 million for him in January.
Yeah, which you would have taken.
We would have absolutely taken that if he's out of contract. We were asking for 25. Don't forget, when Liverpool got the nerds in as well, they're really good at selling, really good at getting good fees. So I don't think we'll sell all of them, but if we was to sell most of them, you're honestly talking around 200 million.
Yeah,
and then Hughes gets complete freedom with that 200 million to invest it however he sees fit. As long as you balance the books, it doesn't matter if you spend 400 million, just as long as you sell 400 million worth of players. Then that's how it works. It's as simple as that. We've got a lot of players to sell, a lot of sellable assets in there, and if we look at starters, I don't know, 3.5 needs or something like that. So you can throw all the earnings that you make at them. So
they're in a good position, aren't they? But I still, there's a fear in me that they just won't do that much business.
I'll be amazed. I will be amazed.
I was amazed last summer though.
See, I weren't though. You was amazed last summer?
I was amazed that we just got Chiesa. I was convinced he'd just go out and get a centre forward because that's how you put your print on the team.
No, I really wasn't. I thought to myself, like, we've got a new manager, a new sporting director, really, a deep squad of players, all of whom are strangers to the manager. So I thought we'd just buy our time in that. But this summer, I can just see plenty of upgrades.
I really hope you're right. I say Liverpool's squad needs it, I think. But there's just that fear in me that goes, are they going to do it, Chris? And I don't know is the answer. So there we go. We're going over to redmenplus.com. We're going to look at specifically at one man, and that man's name is Luis Diaz. Because there's quite a lot of talk about Diaz, isn't there? And I think it's time we did a deep dive into his contract situation.
Yeah, it's an interesting one. A lot of people just seem to assume every summer that he's for sale. And he might be. But we're going to look at the pros and cons of it. I think it was either last week or the week before with Chris or with Paul or Steve. I did is Dominic Szoboszlai upgradable?
Yeah.
And it was genuinely an open question with no yes or no. And that's kind of what this one is. Diaz, do you keep, do you sell? As I'm saying this right now, I don't know. So we'll see where we go with it.
Okay, so there you go. Check us out on Redmen Plus in 10 minutes. Big thank you to everyone who's watched live. Big thank you to anyone who's liked the video. Don't forget to subscribe and leave your comment below. Ta-ra.